For years after my parents told everyone I had disappeared, I walked into my hometown grocery store, and an old family friend started crying when she saw me. She grabbed my hand and whispered, "Oh my God, you're alive." I stared at her in confusion. Of course I'm alive. Why wouldn't I be? Her face went pale. Your parents told us you were gone. My heart stopped. Because my parents knew exactly where I was. They had my phone number. They knew my address. They knew where I worked. And yet, for 4 years, they had been telling everyone that their daughter had disappeared. But that wasn't the part that hurt the most. The worst part was why they needed everyone to believe that lie. I hadn't run away. I hadn't abandoned my family. I hadn't stopped loving them. I had simply stopped sending them money. And apparently, that was enough for my own parents to erase me from their lives. But before I tell you how that happened, you need to understand what I had done for my family. For years, I was the daughter everyone called when something went wrong. Can you help with the electricity bill? I paid it. Your father's medicine is expensive. I sent the money. Your brother needs tuition. I paid that too. Groceries. House repairs. Unexpected expenses. There was always something. And I never complained. I worked extra hours because I believed helping my family was my responsibility. Then one month, everything changed. My car needed expensive repairs. My rent was due. And after paying my own bills, I barely had enough money left. So I called my mother. Mom, I'm sorry. I can't send money this month. I just need some time. I expected her to understand. Instead, she became silent. Then she asked, "After everything we've done for you?" I couldn't believe it. Mom, I'm not abandoning you. I'm just struggling. Her voice became cold. You've become selfish. That night, I cried more than I want to admit. Not because I couldn't send money. But because I realized my mother seemed more hurt by losing my money than by seeing me struggle. The next morning, I opened social media. And that's when I saw something that made my hands shake. My younger brother was standing beside a brand new luxury car. My mother was smiling proudly next to him. And underneath the picture, she had written, "Our son deserves everything. We are so proud of him." I stared at that picture. 3 days earlier, my mother had told me they couldn't afford their electricity bill. Now they had bought my brother a car. Then I saw his comment. "Thank you, Mom and Dad. I couldn't have done this without you." Something inside me went completely quiet. I called my father. Where did the money for his car come from? He didn't even try to explain. Instead, he became angry. Then he said, "If you don't want to support this family anymore, maybe you shouldn't consider yourself part of it." I held the phone against my ear. For years, I had sacrificed everything for them. And now, because I couldn't send money for 1 month, my own father was telling me I didn't belong. So I said only 2 words. "Okay. Goodbye." I hung up. Then I made the hardest decision of my life. I stopped sending money. I thought I was simply setting a boundary. I had no idea that my parents were about to tell our entire family a completely different story. A story where I wasn't a daughter who finally stood up for herself. I was the daughter who had disappeared. And 4 years later, I was finally going to discover exactly why they needed everyone to believe I was gone. For the first few months after I stopped sending money, I kept telling myself my parents would eventually calm down. I was wrong. They didn't calm down. They erased me. At first, my mother stopped calling. Then my father stopped answering my messages. I called several times, but every call went straight to voicemail. I sent texts asking if they were okay. No response. I even sent one message saying, "I don't want us to fight. I'm still your daughter. We can talk whenever you're ready." My mother never replied. Instead, I received one message from my younger brother. It said, "Mom and Dad don't want you contacting them anymore. Leave us alone." I stared at those words for a long time. I couldn't understand how everything had changed so quickly. For years, I had been the person they called when they needed help. Now I was being treated like a stranger. Still, I decided not to chase them. I focused on my own life. I worked. I paid my bills. I slowly rebuilt my savings. And for the first time, I started making plans that didn't involve rescuing everyone else. Then, almost a year later, I returned to my hometown for an old friend's wedding. I expected it to be uncomfortable. I didn't expect to discover that my entire family had rewritten my life. While I was standing outside the reception hall, an older woman approached me. She looked at me for several seconds. Then her eyes filled with tears. "Is that really you?" I smiled. "Yes." She covered her mouth. "My God. What happened?" I asked. She looked around before lowering her voice. "Your parents told everyone you disappeared." I thought I had heard her wrong. "Disappeared?" She nodded. "They said you left suddenly. They said you stopped contacting them. They didn't know where you were." My heart started pounding. "But that's not true." "I know that now," she whispered. "But everyone believed them." I couldn't speak. Then she told me something even worse. My parents had apparently been telling relatives that I had abandoned the family during a difficult time. They said they were heartbroken. They said they had no idea where I had gone. Some relatives even believed I had moved to another country. Others thought something terrible had happened to me. I stood there listening, completely numb. Then one question came into my mind. Why would they lie about something so serious? I already knew the answer. Money. If they told everyone I had simply stopped supporting them, people would ask questions. They would ask why. They would ask how much I had given them. They would ask what happened to all that money. But if they said I had disappeared, they became the victims. And I became the selfish daughter who abandoned them. That night, I went back to my apartment and opened my old bank records. I started going through every transfer I had made to my parents. 1 month. Then another. Then another. Years of payments. I saved screenshots. Downloaded statements. Found old messages. My mother thanking me for paying bills. My father asking me to send money. My brother asking me to cover his expenses. I put everything into one folder. Then I added the numbers together. When I saw the final amount, I couldn't believe it. I had given my family tens of thousands of dollars. And suddenly, I understood something. My parents hadn't erased me because I had done something wrong. They had erased me because they needed a story that would hide the truth. I could have exposed them immediately. But I didn't. I waited. Because deep inside, I wanted to know how far they were willing to take their lie. And then, almost 4 years after I stopped sending money, my phone rang. It was my mother. I hadn't heard her voice in years. I answered. She sounded strangely calm. Then she said, "Honey, please come home. We need to talk." I knew something was wrong. Because after 4 years of pretending I didn't exist, why did my mother suddenly need me back? My mother's voice sounded different that night. Soft. Almost loving. The kind of voice I remembered from before everything fell apart. "Please come home," she said. "We need to talk." I didn't answer immediately. For 4 years, this woman had allowed our relatives to believe I had disappeared. Now she suddenly wanted me back. I asked one question. Why? She hesitated. "There's a family gathering. Everyone will be here." Everyone. That word stayed in my mind. I knew this wasn't about missing me. It was about something else. So I agreed. But I didn't go back as the frightened daughter who had spent years wondering what she had done wrong. I went back with 4 years of bank statements, messages, receipts, and proof. The next weekend, I drove to my parents' house. The moment I walked through the front door, the room became completely silent. My mother froze. My father stopped talking. My younger brother stared at me like he had seen someone from another life. Then my aunt whispered, "Where have you been?" I looked directly at my parents. "That's a good question." My mother's face turned pale. She walked toward me. "Can we please not do this here?" I almost smiled. "Why not? You told everyone I disappeared. Maybe everyone deserves to hear where I actually was." Nobody moved. My father finally stepped forward. "We were worried about you." I looked at him. "Worried?" I took my phone from my purse. "I called you 31 times in 1 year." Silence. "I sent messages." I opened the records. "You blocked my number." My father looked away. Then my brother suddenly said, "You abandoned us." I turned toward him. "Did I?" He crossed his arms. "You stopped helping the family." There it was. The truth. Not she disappeared. Not we lost our daughter. Not we were worried. I stopped giving them money. I slowly placed a folder on the dining table. "Then let's talk about that." My mother immediately said, "There's no need." I opened the folder. These are the payments I made over the years. I placed the first statement on the table. Then another. Then another. My aunt picked one up. Her eyes widened. "What is all this?" I looked at her. "Money I sent to Mom and Dad." My mother tried to take the papers. I stopped her. "No. Let everyone see." Then I opened the messages. There were dozens. My mother asking me to pay the electricity bill. My father asking for money for medicine. My brother asking me to pay his tuition. Then came the messages that made the room completely silent. My mother had once written, "Don't worry about your brother. We'll take care of everything. Just send the money." Another message said, "Please don't tell your father we're short this month." My aunt slowly looked at my mother. "Is this true?" My mother couldn't answer. My father suddenly raised his voice. "So what if we asked our daughter for help? You're our child." I looked at him calmly. "I was your daughter when you needed money." I pointed toward the folder. "But when I needed understanding, you called me selfish." Nobody spoke. Then my brother made the biggest mistake of his life. He looked at me and said, "You were supposed to keep helping us." I stared at him. And for the first time I wasn't angry. I was completely calm. Because those 7 words had finally confirmed everything. They didn't miss me. They didn't need me. They needed what I provided. I looked around the room. For 4 years, you told everyone I disappeared. Then I placed one final document on the table. But I didn't disappear. I looked directly at my mother. I just stopped paying. Her face went completely pale. And then my father asked the question I had been waiting 4 years to hear. "What are you going to do with all this?" My father stared at the folder on the table. "What are you going to do with all this?" For 4 years, I had imagined this moment. I had imagined screaming. I had imagined exposing every lie. I had imagined watching my parents finally regret what they had done. But standing there, surrounded by the people who had believed their story, I felt something completely different. I felt calm. I looked at my father and said, "Nothing." He looked confused. "Nothing?" I nodded. "I don't want your house. I don't want your money. I don't want revenge." Then I looked at everyone in the room. "I just want the truth to stop being hidden." I picked up my phone and showed them the messages. I showed them the bank transfers. I showed them every request for money I had received. Then I showed them something even more important. The messages I had sent after my parents stopped talking to me. Messages asking if they were okay. Messages asking them to call me. Messages saying I still loved them. Messages that had never received a response. My aunt started crying. I had no idea, she whispered. Another relative looked at my parents. Why did you tell everyone she disappeared? My mother finally broke down. She admitted they were embarrassed. They didn't want people to know their daughter had stopped supporting them. They were afraid relatives would ask where all the money had gone. So they created a story. A story where I was the selfish daughter who walked away. A story where they were the heartbroken parents. A story that protected their reputation. But now, the story was over. My brother tried to defend himself. He said he never knew how much money I had sent. I looked at him. You didn't know? Then I showed him the messages where he personally asked me for money. He became silent. For once, there was nothing left to say. I didn't insult them. I didn't threaten them. I didn't demand an apology. I simply stood up. Before leaving, I looked at my mother. I spent 4 years wondering why you stopped loving me. She started crying. But now I understand. I took a breath. You didn't stop loving me when I stopped sending money. I paused. You showed me what your love had always depended on. Then I walked out. That night, my phone started filling with messages. Relatives apologized. Some admitted they had judged me. Others told me they had always wondered why my parents suddenly stopped talking about me. One aunt said something I'll never forget. We thought you abandoned them. Now we realize they abandoned you. For the first time in 4 years, I didn't feel like I had to defend myself. The truth was finally speaking for me. My parents eventually had to face the life they had been avoiding. My brother got a job. My parents learned to manage their own expenses. And I kept moving forward. I bought the things I had once postponed. I traveled. I built savings. I made friends who loved me for who I was, not for what I could provide. But the biggest change happened inside me. I stopped feeling guilty for saying no. Because saying no doesn't make you selfish. Protecting yourself doesn't make you cruel. And refusing to be used doesn't mean you don't love your family. Sometimes, the most powerful revenge isn't destroying someone. It's becoming so strong that their lies can no longer control your life. My parents spent 4 years telling everyone I had disappeared. But the truth was much simpler. I hadn't disappeared. I had finally found myself. And when I stopped paying for everyone's happiness, I finally had enough left to build my own. So if there's one lesson I learned from those 4 years, it's this. Never confuse being needed with being loved. People who truly love you will value your presence even when you have nothing to give. Because family should never be a bill you are expected to pay every month. And sometimes, walking away from people who only love what you provide isn't revenge. It's freedom.